And I think that's powerful. I think having ownership over your running, having that responsibility over your running is the number one thing you can do, like as an athlete. So
Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon? That's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me.
But not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on Instagram and YouTube and sometimes on TikTok. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, please give this podcast a review. That is, if you are enjoying it, share it with a friend, and follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Today we have Amanda Vestri with us, and if you don't know her already, I'm sure you will very soon because she placed 9th in the New York City Marathon. If you haven't noticed, we are kind of on a streak of New York City marathoners or marathon runners this weekend. It's been back to back. Amanda ran a 2:25. It was her first marathon, and obviously that is super, super impressive. It's actually the fastest first-time marathon by an American in New York City. And the way she's been so reflected when it comes to her training, you know, like the way she's smart about her training really impressed me, and I learned a lot from her. I think that it's really cool to hear about young athletes. She's 26 years old, so young in the sport of marathon running. It's really cool to hear how she is so aware of what it takes to become a good runner and to improve as a marathoner. And just with her first marathon, I can tell that she's going to be great, not just because of the time that she ran this first marathon, but also just the way she's thinking and the way she's approaching running. It's clear that she has great passion and that she loves running. And it was also a great talk. I feel really, fortunate to be able to talk to these runners. And I told her after the chat too that it's such a privilege for me to sit here and have this podcast and be able to just listen to some of the best runners in the world. And that is something that I do not take for granted. And especially now that I haven't really been able to run, this podcast has given me so much and it has meant so much. So I want to thank you for listening to this podcast as well, because it just gives me a lot of energy in a time when I'm not able to run and do what I love the most. So thank you for that. And again, thanks to Amanda for guesting the Marathon Podcast. And with that, I just want to say, enjoy the podcast, enjoy the run if you're out for a run or a drive, whatever you're doing. Here's Amanda Vestri. Amanda, welcome to the Marathon Podcast.
thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat all about the marathon.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you here too. And I first saw you when Jess McLean, she kept on posting throughout the marathon, photos of you and how good you were doing. And I'm curious to just hear, before you present yourself, how was the feeling, or how was it to race New York this weekend?
I think if I had to sum it up in one word, it would be magical. It was an incredible experience. I'm from upstate New York, so not exactly New York City, but it did feel like a little bit of a homecoming to have my first marathon be in the state of New York. And just running with so many people on the streets of New York. It was an incredible experience. Just knowing that it was so much bigger than just the pro field was a really cool thing to be a part of. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was amazing to watch too, and I was so happy when I was watching it that they were focusing so much on the women's field.
Mm-hmm.
It was because sometimes they just focus on the men, but this time we really got to see the whole race, and that was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't looked back at the broadcast yet, but I know that my brother and his wife were watching me with their little baby, and they said the broadcast was good, and they were able to follow me And yeah, I mean, with the star power that we had in that women's field, you can't turn your head away from that. So you've got some of the best ladies in the world in that race. So it's probably a treat for the viewers back home as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to talk more about that. But before we do, I would love for you to just present yourself, who you are, and what your journey has been like with running.
Yeah, so I grew up in upstate New York and I got into running when I was about 11 years old. And it was just this local pumpkin run that I did in like September or October, sometime in the fall when I was in sixth grade. And I wasn't ever really athletic growing up. I mean, I like to play outside and stuff, but um, never was super into sports or anything like that. Didn't really play a lot of team sports. But I ended up joining the cross country team in seventh grade and just kind of fell in love with the sport. And um, I ran a lot with my dad and my brother because my older brother was in cross country and track as well. And so, yeah, since middle school up until, college, I had always known that pro running was what I wanted to do. And yeah, am really fortunate. I got sponsored by Brooks Running in the past year or so, and I've been working with them. And yeah, it's a great company to be a part of. And I also happen to be a part of some of the best marathoners in America. I am on the same Brooks squad with Erica Kemp, Jess McLean, Susanna Sullivan, all of whom which represented Team USA at the World Championships. So it's crazy that I'm now a part of them as the elite marathoners they are. So and then Emily Infeld, the queen of the track now. So it's really cool. It's been an awesome experience over the past 6 months. So
Yeah, and I want to touch a little bit on what you said last there about the Brooks team, because after I started this podcast, I had Jess on and I had Eric on, and what strikes me with the Brooks team is that it seems like it's just a collection of great human beings. And I mean, that is my impression with running in general, but it's just that it feels like they stand out, and I almost feel like that is something that you have to be a part of the Brooks team. Will you say a little bit more about, about being a part of that?
yeah, I mean, they're big role models for me, and in being great representatives of Brooks. And I think I knew I was part of something special when we went to our first Team Brooks kind of launch event where we all met up in San Diego. And Alafine Tuliama couldn't be there, but we got her FaceTimed in and we all said hi to her. And she specifically, I remember, was like, "Where's Amanda? Let me say hi to Amanda and welcome her to the team," because um, her, me, and Emily Infeld were all new signees, relatively new signees at that point. I had signed a little bit before them, but it was really special to hear from someone like Alafine, who, she's such a legend in our sport, and for her to specifically like welcome me to the group, even though she was also new to the group, was really special. And just again, like you said, goes to show the type of people we have at Brooks, specifically on like that road side of the Brooks team. Um, it's just been, yeah, it's been awesome to be a part of. And for a while there, I was, gosh, I wish, I was part of the marathon crew and all these things. So now that I can call myself a marathoner, I feel even more like that I can relate to them even more. So it's been really, really awesome. And yeah, we'll have another Brooks event in January or February. And I'm just excited to be with all of them again and hang out with them because they really are great people first and so supportive. I've never run a race that I don't get a text from, Jess, Erica, Emily, Alafine, Susanna, everyone on the team is so supportive. And um, that's what you want. That's what you want to be a part of when you don't have, a specific training group that you're with, is you want that camaraderie with other athletes. And we certainly have that here.
Yeah, and again, back to what I said, like the way I've found you was just through those stories, and I feel like that also says a lot about the whole team, right? That just by following your teammates, they are kind of, and they have big followings, and they're introducing kind of you to the world of running just by cheering you on during the race, and I think it says a lot about them and about you guys. So, yeah, I appreciate Brooks. I think it seems like a very good company with great values.
100%. Yeah, I think we all pride ourselves in being a part of a team that is so supportive, and Brooks cares about the individual athlete themselves before they care about the person first and then the athlete. And I think that's the number one thing that I look for in a brand. And being that I'm still so new to the pro running scene, I'm so glad that I found them at a time so early in my career, because now I have that expectation of how a brand should treat an athlete. And yeah, I couldn't be more grateful that they're, part of my journey right now. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And obviously, to get to a sponsorship or working with Brooks, you have to do some things, right? Also, as a runner. And this weekend, like you said, you did New York Marathon 2:25, an amazing debut for the and on the distance. It's insane. But if we were to backtrack it a little bit before we dive into that part, uh, you said that you started running at age 11, was it?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
Do
Yeah.
you remember that feeling? Because you said that you fell in love with it immediately. Do you remember the feeling that you got that first time?
I think I fell in love with the sport of cross country first, and just the like the element of being out on the grass and running over the hills and running in nature. I love running on trails. And I think the first thing I fell in love with was like the process of making goals, and like the excitement that you get when you're like, hey, I want to do this thing, and you get excited about the prospect of working toward a goal. And even from a young age, it was like, oh man, I want to do this race, and I want to beat as many boys as I can in the race, or I want to be the first girl to cross the finish line. And I remember in that race in particular, I was the second girl in the race in the pumpkin run. And I was like, oh man, like next time I'm going to be the best girl to cross the finish line. And just in that race alone, I feel like it kind of bred a little bit of like that competitive side that I have. And I mean, I'm sure everyone in this sport has a competitive nature. We're all competitors, so I love the competition of it. I love the act of racing. I train to race, not the other way around. Like I don't train just to be like, good in a training run. I train with the race in my head constantly. So if I'm, looking at this New York race, for example, like the past 2 months have like every run I go on, it's like, let me think about New York. And yeah, I think from a young age, it just inspired that kind of competitive nature in me. And I really like the team element of cross country. So I fell in love with that part of running. And my dad and my brother, we would run together when I was super young, and then it started being where I could beat my dad in runs, and then eventually, like, later on in my, career as a college kid, I was able to beat my brother. And so I think it just like the progression was fun. And yeah, and now it's fun because I cheer my brother on. He does a lot of local races and stuff, and he's getting back into running. So I think running is such a community builder, and that's another part of it that I love. So
Yeah, for sure. That is something that I think that is the motivation behind this podcast too, right?
yeah,
And the reason why I love it is that I'm able to get to know people like yourself and just that community, and it feels like you're a part of something. And I was talking to someone about it just before jumping on this call, that also, like, if you're injured or if you're out for some reason, you still have the community, and as long as you're a part of that, it isn't as hard to be on the sideline, like from an athletic or yeah, from the athletic perspective, but more just like you're still a part of that, and that means a lot. And I do see that running, I think to a lot of people at least, it helps them a lot in life because they're just feel like they belong to something.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think like you don't have to be the best runner. No one's going to be the best runner. There's always going to be someone better than you, faster than you. And the thing I love about running the most is that it it can bring people from like different walks of life together, and it doesn't matter like where you started. If you try to run, you're a runner. If you run really slowly, you're a runner. Like it doesn't matter what your pace is. It doesn't matter what your background is. And yeah, I think that that's running is so unique because you don't see that in other professional sports. Like you can't just like recreationally, like running in the New York City Marathon, for example, you're lining up behind the best in the world and as a maybe an average, regular runner, and you don't get to do that in other professional sports. So the access
No.
that you have to the best in the world in running, like an Elliot Kipchoge, the access you have to someone like that, it's insane that you are able to do that. So yeah, it's crazy, and it really like shows itself at these big races that wow, like running inspires so many people.
Yeah, definitely. I've been talking to several people about that. That if everyone in the world ran, the world would probably be an even better place. You know, like
100%. Yeah,
mhm.
100%. I agree. I'm cranky when I can't run either, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes two of us. My
Mhm.
my fiance was saying the other day, she's like, "Yeah, I can tell now that you haven't been able to run for a while." I was
Oh, are
like,
you injured or
I've been sick. I got COVID, I think, and
oh,
then I've been just dealing with some symptoms for a while. So just my,
yeah.
my lungs are not working properly, but
Mhm.
I'm good. But it's just like you said,
Yeah.
people around you can kind of tell when
Yeah,
you stop
I
when you're
know.
not able to.
Don't worry, we're in the same boat because 'cause I'm taking a little time off of running after the race, so we're, you know, get back to running eventually, though. It'll always be there.
Yeah,
It's gotta give your body a rest.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so you said you fell in love with cross country. Like honestly, when you were describing it, I was like, yeah, that I need to do more of that because that's also something that I remember. I didn't do cross country when I was younger, but just that feeling of just running around and just yeah, the way you described it, I was like, that's what I need to do more of. Just go back and do that. But I also know that you obviously eventually went on to track and had more races there. How has your career been? And first of all, I don't think we established how old you are for the listeners, just so they know.
Yes.
You started at 11, and now you are.
26 in September,
Mhm.
so yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so how after falling in love with cross country and doing that, how has your career kind of progressed since?
So, I mean, I moved up to like the like varsity high school team in indoor and outdoor track as like a 7th or 8th grader, so pretty young. I was kind of thrown into like the not top tier, but definitely the top tier of our high school. And um I wouldn't say I was very low mileage in high school. I probably ran like 30 miles a week max, maybe even less, but I got a good feel for what the competition would be like in the NCAA because I had some of the best girls in the country in my state. Like I had raced Caitlin Tui pretty frequently, Jessica Lawson, like all these girls who ended up going pro and being very good runners. And yeah, I mean, I think my running progressed not linearly, but the trajectory was always kind of pointed toward a higher level of running. Just based off of like the consistency that I was able to build over the past like 15 years. But there were definitely times in my running career where like I would talk to my dad and I would be like, I don't like, I don't think I can, I don't think I can be good anymore. Like, you come back from a really hard injury and you just feel awful and you're like, I don't think I'll ever be the same runner again. And there is definitely moments of my career where I thought like maybe this is not for me, but it never got to a point where I actually entertained not running because I love it so much. But um, just for like the listeners out there, like it's th- you see big performances and great performances, but there's so much under the surface that you're not seeing, and the struggles that people have, and every pro runner has gone through injuries and injury cycles, and Sometimes you can do everything right. Like you can do the strength training, you can eat right, you can sleep right, you can train right, and still, like, you get injured, you get sick. There's a wrench thrown in the plans. So, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a progression toward the level that I'm at, but I think the number one thing that plays a role in that is just building bricks, stacking bricks, and trying to stay like injury free and as consistent as possible. It's not any crazy workout or crazy high mileage. It's just like being consistent and continually showing up for yourself.
That's awesome. You know, sometimes when I have guests on and they say something just like you did now, I'm like, thank you, you know, on behalf of the listeners, because what you just said there, I think that regardless of your level, people need to hear that. And I also think that a lot of people, especially young people, need to hear that, because it's like you said, it's so easy to just, especially with social media today, you see the progress and then you kind of forget about the all the bad things or all the struggles that professional athletes or great athletes are facing, right? And maybe we don't even share those things. We just share the great stories. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like I think it's I'm not the most like outwardly like social media type person, and I've been trying to get better about sharing on there. But for me, I think, and most runners, it's a really vulnerable place to put yourself in when you're going through the injury or the hard time. And believe me, if even if you're not seeing it on social media, it is happening. And runners, pro runners, everyone, every day, an everyday person is going through their own struggles. And social media just doesn't isn't a place where a lot of people are sharing that. But I promise you, it is. You're not alone. Um, and yeah, I have a lot of respect for people who do outwardly share that. But I think it is a process to be able to get there, because it is such a vulnerable place that you're putting yourself in. And if you're not ready to like share it with that many people, I think it's okay to keep that to yourself. I don't think you owe it to people to share the hard times, but just know that it's not easy. No one's, if you're relating it to running, like no one's 8 week, 10 week build is going perfectly. It's not. I mean, you talk to pro runners all the time and they're like, oh yeah, I thought like 3 weeks from the race, I probably wasn't going to line up. Like these things happen, and people out there only really get to see the final product. So there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. We don't owe it to anyone to be open or anything, but just like you said, saying that and just be like, I might not share it, but just know that that's still the
Yes.
case.
100%. Yeah, I'm all
Yeah.
for being totally, like, honest and transparent, and, I think that's really important, but I do think it is hard, in this day and age to just be, like, totally, like, pouring yourself out there. I think it takes a lot out of you emotionally, so
Yeah, and I think especially as an athlete, you need to be aware of that too, because like you being at the level you're at, if you were to be open about it, you might risk getting questions about that just before a race, and that might be things that you don't want to really talk about or focus on. And so you just have to keep those things in mind and know that the openness can also have consequences, and then you just need to be aware of that and ready for those consequences if you choose to do so. And that's why I think it's important to respect both decisions, whether you want to be open or not.
100%, yeah. Because I've 100% learned a lot about people who have been openly, public about certain injuries or like struggles that they're going through. And I just hope like for those people that like when questions are asked, it's like in a respectful manner. And yeah, because if you're gonna put yourself out there, um, I think it's super courageous. And I think a lot of people, whether they know it or not, probably do relate to those issues. And yeah, it's a social media can be a great place, but it can also be, super critical at times, and you just gotta protect yourself sometimes too. So
Yeah, and I talked about that a lot on this podcast, how social media is kind of my biggest inspiration in terms of running, because I find a lot of inspiration in people running fast and stuff. But it also kind of, whenever I run a PR and it's like, okay, this is a great marathon, it's like, I'm happy with it. And then I go onto social media and then I see a lot of people that I follow and they did a faster marathon than me, and then I'm just like, oh, maybe it wasn't that good after all. And then you kind of forget that the people you follow, that's this bubble of people who are obsessed with running, right? So if I compared my marathon time to someone else in this neighborhood, they would still be like, oh wow, that's amazing. But I kind of forget about that because I'm following people, and it's so easy to be caught in that little
It's so
bubble
easy.
of yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a comparison cycle, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, one of the reasons that when talk to like family members, maybe for example, they think you're the best, like they're like, wow, you're the best runner in the world. Like you're so fast. And you're like, well, actually, I just got beat by, eight other women in this race or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's not fair to do that, right? Because like I said, there's always going to be someone faster than you, unless you're literally the fastest person on the planet, which no one really is, right?
No.
So that's why I think it's important to respect those around you and respect their accomplishments, but also not downplay your own accomplishments because
Hmm.
you work hard to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to the next question that I have for you, and that is, you, like you said, you had a lot of progress, you had some challenges, but you still kind of had that progress throughout your career, and then you made a decision to now at least step onto the roads and do a marathon. What led you to the marathon, and how early did you know that that was something that you wanted to do?
I think I always knew I was gonna try the marathon distance at some point. But particularly when I got out of college and started running professionally, I moved to the roads pretty quickly, and moved away from the track a little bit more. I still did track, because that was something I enjoyed, but I think naturally once you start getting on the roads and you get like a real feel for them, you can kind of tell if you're more suited to the roads. And I think the first time I kind of realized that was um, 2 years ago when I ran in London in a 10K. I ran like 31:10 on the track. And then a week or two later, I ran 31:17 through Central Park at the New York Mini. So it's like only a 7-second difference on the roads, on hills. And I kind of realized like, man, you might be good at like a half marathon or something. So I ended up debuting in a half marathon, ran like 68 minutes or something around there, and then ran 67:35 at Houston, qualified for the World Road Running Championships that got canceled, um, which is kind of funny now looking back on it. But after those got canceled, I was like, well, my fall is open, and I was like, I'm going to do a marathon. And it was just about which one we wanted to do, Chicago or New York. And ultimately, I thought for my first race, I didn't want to be so focused on time. I wanted to just really focus on being a competitor and trusting my instincts. And so that's why I chose New York. And I also just love the New York Roadrunners and have done many of their events. And they treat you like royalty. They're amazing. So it was a pretty like easy decision at that point for me to go and choose New York to do my debut at.
And looking back now after the weekend, I'm sure you're happy that you did that. But can you say something about before that, when something very big is canceled like that and you have to change your plans? Can you say something about kind of your first reaction, but also how you deal with that? Because I'm sure there's like frustration, anger,
Yeah.
so many things.
Yeah, I was really upset initially just because it was supposed to be held in San Diego on home soil. And, my parents had already been starting to talk about, we're going to book flights to San Diego to come watch you. And we actually had our Team Brooks like camp in San Diego because the World Road Running Championships were being held there. So it's just like a lot of things went into place for this race being the goal and the end goal to be representing Team USA at the World Half Marathon Championships in September. So when I learned that they were canceled like a week after the race, I almost was like not numb to it, but I was just a little bit like in disbelief. And so I don't think it really had hit me that like my like goals had been just kind of like stripped away from me. But I think the thing that made it like a little bit not easier but more relatable was that the two women that I made the team with, Emma Grace Hurley and Taylor Rowe, I was like, you know what? They're going through the same thing. They're okay. The three men who qualified are going through the same thing. We're all going to be okay. Other opportunities are going to open up for us. And I think we could probably all agree that in the moment it was hard, but looking at what we all did this fall, I'm sure most of us are thrilled that we got the opportunity to race other things this fall instead of that race. So I think at the end of the day, I don't love this saying everything happens for a reason, but had I done that race, I probably wouldn't have done a fall marathon. So, I mean, for me, it ended up being a positive, right? And I'll always say, like, running for Team USA or your country is the ultimate honor to represent your country. But um, it didn't happen, and I was able to run the New York City Marathon. So I'm happy with it, and I'm okay with it now.
Yeah, because I guess New York is a pretty big deal as well. So why don't you take us through that from making that decision and starting to train for that, because that was your first marathon. How was it to kind of start preparing for that? Were you intimidated or were you very ready for it?
I think I was ready for the training, but intimidated by the race itself because the idea of running 26.2 miles, like, even to this day, it's like it's an intimidating distance, right? And I knew that in training I would never touch that distance. And so to race, it was such an odd feeling because to know that you're going to eventually race a distance that you've never run in your life before all at once is like that for me conceptually. I was like, wow, that's a complete unknown. Race day is always an unknown. And then on top of that, this distance is unknown. So I was intimidated by the distance, but I knew that my training would prepare me um, to at least run like a respectable time and to be able to finish. And um, and I've always I think with the marathon, the thing that people maybe sometimes forget is like it's not about just one build for a marathon. It's about the lifetime miles that you've acquired before that. And over the past couple of years, I've been more of a higher mileage athlete, running some weeks over 100 miles a week, even for 10K training or for half marathon training. So for me, running 115 miles in a week wasn't out of the ordinary. It wasn't something that was totally uncomfortable for me. The thing we changed the most in training, I would say, is the weekly mileage didn't go that much higher than I've done before, but the long runs got a lot longer. So, um, yeah, that was kind of how I approached like the marathon mentally is like just focus on the training and you'll be all right for race day.
Yeah. And then in those preparations, I'm not familiar with it, but I saw that you're a part of something called SEP. Is it? Is
Yes.
that what it is? Is that a training group
Yes.
or
Yes. So Zap Endurance um is a club based in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. It's a running club headed by the head coach Pete Ray. And I joined their club team right out of college, and we don't have a shoe sponsor or anything like that. Athletes were funded financially by donors to the foundation. And so that's kind of the team that I was a part of for the first, like, I don't know how many months, probably like 6, 7, 8 months. And then once I had those breakout performances in London and at the New York City, or I'm sorry, the New York Mini 10K 2 years ago in the spring, I got I had an agent and he got me a deal with Brooks Running. And so since then, I've been funded and sponsored by Brooks, but I've stayed with the team there to train under my coach Pete Ray, my coach for this marathon. And but that being said, I did do the whole build, the New York build alone. My coach would be there, but I did every workout alone. Didn't have a training partner for this build, so that was difficult. My good friend and great marathoner Tristan Colley, she's a 225 marathoner. She ran that in 2023. at Chicago. She's done marathon Olympic trials. She's a very talented runner. She's actually, when I had gotten back to North Carolina to start the build, she had told me she was pregnant, so that she was, I thought like, oh, we're going to be able to run this marathon training build, like some of it together, maybe like at least a few of the long runs together. And I know she had been planning on doing Chicago, but so yeah, it was a bit of a lonely build in that regard, um, but now unfortunately, Zap is shutting down, so no one will be training there anymore after this year. So yeah, that's why I'm in Florida now, just kind of taking a little bit of time off after the race and deciding what I'm going to do next. So yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that you wrote that you were gonna give it, what was it, one last hooray or something, and but
Yeah.
but but does that mean that, or although you were doing all the training by yourself, you were still coached, right?
Yeah, so I was still being coached by Pete and our assistant coach Ryan. Um, and yeah, so that was obviously hugely helpful to have that support there for me. Just like athlete wise, there wasn't anyone to really help with my build. Like I wasn't a part of like a lot of these teams have, you know, endless amount of training partners and things like that. I didn't really have that. Um, but so in that regard, nothing really changes that much. But um, the support from my coaches was really hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and I was just about to ask you about your training, but now that you're mentioning that that is shutting down, what
Yeah.
after such like a successful marathon and all of that, what does it do to you knowing that that is shutting down? Is that hard, or is that something that you kind of now were so you were so prepared for that it's kind of okay?
I was prepared for it because we had this conversation like a couple of months ago at this point, like in late August, early September. I had known that Zap was shutting down and that people were going to have to, like, not that we were going to have to, I think we could live wherever we wanted. But for me, like, um, because I knew this was happening and that I was going to be changing coaches, it gives me, while it's super sad, obviously, that Zap is shutting down, it does give me more autonomy over um, doing experimenting with things I haven't with before, like altitude training. I haven't experimented with that at all, and I think that could help me a lot. Um, and so, yeah, I think having being coached like remotely now, I think is going to allow me to really find what works best for me training wise, and hopefully being able to train with more people in different altitude locations and seeing what really works for me as an athlete now that I'm a little bit older and I kind of know what I need as an athlete to be successful.
But does that mean that you are, per definition, right now a full time athlete? So you are kind of free
Yeah.
to go wherever you
Hmm.
like, and yeah,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah. Super nice.
living the dream.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so the build up to New York, you were saying that the mileage wasn't really a problem for you, but I assume that still there are differences in the training compared to a 10K because of the more marathon specific workouts. How was it for you to kind of transition into that?
Yeah. I think the biggest adjustment was getting used to going a little bit slower than I'm comfortable going in a lot of workouts because, the marathon is such a beast of a distance. I think um, going from 10K half marathon training is quite a bit different than marathon training, in my opinion. Because when I was running the half marathons in at last December and then at Houston in January and then in Atlanta in March. I was training, I was very 10K specific athlete at that point, I think. And that's why I ran well in the half. But I was under the false impression that half marathon training would be very similar to marathon training, and it's not at all. You have to learn to be a little bit more patient in marathon training, and you have to kind of let the ego go, know that you're not going to be running you know, 5:10 or 5:0 pace for every workout. It's just not going to happen. If you're trying to run the paces that I'm running in the marathon, that's a little bit unrealistic to expect yourself sorry, that's my dogs. To expect yourself to be able to run the same paces that you were when you were 10K training as you were when you were marathoning. So that was the biggest adjustment for me. And also just like there was one workout I had that was like 5 miles steady and then 1 mile flow, 4 miles steady, 1 mile flow, 3 miles steady, 1 mile flow, 1 mile hard. Yeah, and it's just these type of workouts where you're really calling upon your aerobic capacity to get you through the workout. And you don't see that too much in 10K training. Um, so that was probably the biggest difference I noticed. And interestingly enough, this entire build, I never once stepped foot on a track. So it was very much like I'm a very, I think, like strength oriented athlete. I don't think I've run decent 5Ks and 10Ks. Like I run 15:01 in the 5K, 31:10 in the 10K. But I think my physiology is a lot more geared toward like long, hard running. And so, yeah, I didn't even touch the track for this build, which is funny because I know a lot of professional athletes consistently do track work. But not to say that I won't do track work on my next build, but I think it's just interesting how everyone's got a different approach to marathoning. So,
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, you came from 10K half marathons,
yeah.
or 10K half marathon training, and I feel like we do hear a lot about, oh, he or she did a very good half marathon, so we have big expectations for the marathon. But it's not like given, because although half marathon, yeah, it's a longer distance than the 10K. It's a huge difference between the half marathon and the marathon. And so for you going into this training wise, did you feel very confident that this was something that you would master, or were you kind of like, I have no idea what I'm heading into?
But with what you just said, I had no idea. In fact, I, not that the half marathon has no relation to the marathon, but like, of course, the better you are at the half, once you've done a marathon, I think like the better you can get your half marathon, the better your marathon could become. In terms of like the physiology required and the different energy systems required for the half marathon versus the marathon. I mean, I am no like science expert or exercise physiologist, but in my opinion, the 10K and the half marathon are leaps and bounds closer together training wise than the marathon is.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah, it's just not, there's really no comparison. The marathon is a totally different beast. Like, if you can't run, like, I don't know, like, I think, okay, to zoom out a little bit, I think if you look at someone like Dakota Popane, who's like an Olympian in the marathon, right? Like, she'll be the first to tell you when she had like a couple of her really breakout marathons, she probably would tell you like, no, I can't run like 67 right now in the half. Like I know she can now, like she's gotten better in the half now, but even in her earlier stages of her career, like the half and the marathon are so different. Like just because you're really good at the half or the 10K doesn't mean you're going to be a great marathoner. And vice versa. I think just because you're a great marathoner doesn't mean you can run, if you have to run half the distance, you can run 7 minutes faster or something in that half. So, yeah, I think they're just two different events, right? And just because it's got the word marathon in both words doesn't mean they're, super similar. But that being said, I still love the half marathon and I respect that event as well. And like I do want to get better at the half, but that's because I want to get better at the half. Like that distance doesn't mean it's gonna necessarily make my marathon a whole lot better, but it might make my 10K better. Who knows? Yeah.
So then throughout, first of all, I love what you said about just because it has marathon, it doesn't mean, I totally agree with you. And I think that there are also such, if you look at the physiologic, the demands that you have for a half marathon, there are a lot of people can get through a half marathon. And if you mess it up, yes, it's much longer if you blow up at 10K and you have like 11K left, but still you will be able to finish it. If you do the same thing after like 6 miles in a marathon and you have 20 miles left, you will struggle. So I think what you're saying there is it's a very important thing to just keep in mind for anyone thinking that a half marathon is this same as a marathon, just a bit longer. It's not.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you then started training, I assume that the confidence in the distance was still important to you, although you didn't really do that distance in training. How was it for you to start build up that confidence and kind of teach your body that, okay, now we're gonna do the full distance?
Yeah, I think I drew the most confidence off of the fact that I was running a lot on tired legs, because I was doing, like I was running consistently week after week after week, probably high 90s, low 100s every week of the build. And I think your body doesn't really know I feel if for me anyway, my body didn't really know the difference between like um necessarily running, like for example, I did a double threshold day one day for my workout, and I ended up adding my mileage up at the end of that day, and I think it was around 24 miles, right? So it's like on that day, while it wasn't all at once, it was two separate workouts. Your body doesn't really know the difference between like 24 miles on the day, being separated by 5 hours or 6 hours, and things like that instilled confidence in me, right? Knowing like, hey, I put in a lot of work today. I put in 24 miles of work. Like, and that's another, that's another check I can cash in the bank. Um, and knowing that week after week, I was doing quality, like base hit workouts off of very tired legs. I wouldn't say I ever hit a home run workout, but I certainly ran a lot of workouts on fatigued marathon legs. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing going into this build or going into this marathon that I took from the build of like your body is resilient and it will be able to withstand the distance. I don't think the race went perfectly by any means, but I do think uh, it went pretty dang good. And there's definitely things I would change in the future as I learn more about doing the marathon. But overall, I think I could draw a lot of confidence from the build that we had.
And then you did mention that you did most of this, or maybe all of it, by yourself.
Yeah.
You ran by yourself,
Yeah.
and I definitely see benefits of having a group and all of that. But I've also experienced sometimes myself that when I'm doing these crazy workouts and I'm by myself, I almost feel more. I gain more confidence from that.
Yeah.
Although someone else might be doing the same thing or something better on the other side of the states, right? But it's
Yeah.
still, I don't know, for you, did it almost make you feel better because you were doing it by yourself? Like maybe not in the moment, but after?
Yeah, I think I drew a lot of confidence knowing that the marathon is uh, so mentally taxing and challenging, especially those last 6 miles, especially if you went out as fast as I did, which was not smart at all. Um, and I think that I got a lot of confidence from knowing that during these, 20-mile long runs, 21, 22-mile long runs, yeah, it was me. It was me out there with, of course, like, I had support and stuff, but in terms of people I was running with, it was me running by myself against myself, and that helps you in the later stages of the race, in the marathon. And I think it's a strength that I do have because I've had to run alone a lot in my career because I'm the type of athlete that like running is extremely important to me and it's not something I will sacrifice. Like I won't sacrifice on my like work ethic if it means even if it means like I have to do things by myself. I've always been like that. And I guess I'm a little bit selfish in that regard of like I know what works best for me and I'm at the point in my career where like that I think in my training it's important for me to do things that work for me and not things that work better for, Joe Schmo or whoever it is. Like I have to focus on what works well for my body because like I know my body so well now. And I think sometimes in those maybe bigger training groups, the things that I've heard from certain people are that they crave that more like individualized attention to detail in their training because everyone's human physiology is so different. For example, for a Jess McLean, she thrives off of like a little bit of a lower mileage approach to the marathon. I don't, right? Like, so if you're in a group that is looking at the entire, team and trying to prescribe the same thing for every individual, I just think you run into issues of getting it going away from what works best for each individual, and ultimately, like that's something that's super important to me. And I'm really glad that this early on in my career, I could recognize the fact that I might need different things than someone else needs. And we could both still be really good runners. It doesn't like you can both have the same PR, even, but people are going to be different. And um, that's okay. Like that's natural. So,
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's a great strength to be able to kind of see that at a, a young age in the marathon, kind of, because I think that it's so easy to be kind of back to what we were talking about with the social media, whether it's social media affecting you or just teammates, whatever, and just to just be like, okay, I'm accepting that this is how it is. I like this, she likes this, and
yeah.
it doesn't really matter. We can do what we want. But
Yeah.
does that mean that that an option for you could be to be self-coached too?
So I actually am going to be working with David Roach now, who is Jess
Cool.
McLean's coach as well. He is, yeah, he's a great guy, and I mean, every coach I've had has been awesome, and I have the best coaches in the world who are looking out for me. So Pete is gonna my coach Pete Ray, who's been coaching me the past 2 years. He is going to be helping with the transition to kind of handing over the reins to David. And I'm really looking forward to working with David. He's been kind of advising me over the past 8 weeks and looking at my training. So he already has an idea of what kind of athlete I am and how I respond to certain, mileage or workouts or things like that. And really, nothing is going to change too much. He might put his own twist on things, and I'm going to fully entrust my training into him. But it's also more of a partnership than just hey, go out and do this. It's more of like at this stage in my career, um, I think I know what I need as an athlete, and I'm just looking more for that guidance along the way more than anything. Um, and then in terms of where I'm gonna be and what workouts are gonna look like going forward, I think it's exciting because when you're not necessarily stuck in one location, you can start to link up with other people who are, super, super good. And I'm really excited about that aspect of it. Getting out to Flagstaff in December, going out to Colorado in February. So it'll be great to link up with amazing runners and catching a few really good workouts with people. So definitely looking forward to that. And like being able to join some people on long runs and just be in the community. So yeah.
Yeah, and based on what you're saying and based on what Jess said about David, it seems like it's going to be a perfect match. And yeah, that's exciting for you.
I'm so glad Jess introduced me to him. So very very cool. It seems like now that he's coaching a bunch of Brooks athletes, so it's really cool to see because um he coaches Jess, me now, Anna Gibson, and I think some more people too, but I can't really remember. But he also coaches Ali Ostrander, I think. But
Yeah.
so very cool. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it'll be fun to follow.
Yeah.
I really want to hear more about New York, but just before we dive into that, will you give a quick overview of what a normal training week used to look like for you in this marathon block?
Yeah. So, gosh, I think I was doing kind of like 10-day cycles. So I would say a long run about every 10 days. Um, and long runs were pretty important in this build. Either doing things like, it's for the long run, maybe like 50 minutes of just normal running and then like a bunch of different pickups and surges towards the end of a long run, getting the legs going on tired legs. Um, or doing, like I said earlier, one of those longer push workouts where you're running 5 miles at a harder pace and then backing off a mile and then running 4 miles, backing off a mile. So that would be one day. That would be a big day. And then it would be, a few days of kind of recovery, double days, just volume days. And then doing a more specific, let's say like 1K session, or something along those lines where you're doing like longer, maybe like 12-minute pieces or something along those lines, or mile and a half repeats, whatever. And then between those two bigger sessions, it was just a lot of volume mixed into there. A lot of doubles, like I said, maybe during a week that I had a workout on a Tuesday, I would do a workout on a Friday, and then maybe an easier long run on, Sunday or something like that. It just kind of depended on the week. Um, but I mean, I think training theory, like everyone has the same training theory now, like in a lot of ways. I don't think running is crazy secret anymore. Um, I did do like one or two double threshold days, which I personally love. I know there's like mixed research out there on how it affects like female athletes, but for me, I think I do get a really big jump off of that. But yeah, we trained through week after week. We trained through Twin Cities 10 mile. Um, and the whole marathon build was just about like continuously fatiguing. And then I would have like a 2 or 3 day dip day, or 2 or 3 day dip reset, where I would lower the mileage pretty drastically for 2 or 3 days, maybe have a day off here or there. Um, but yeah, every week was different. And um, yeah, I think I never really I don't think I ever really went above and beyond this build in any workout or any week. Like there's no week I think back on where I was like, wow, I can't believe I did that or anything like that. So it was just pretty standard training. Yeah, nothing crazy. Just getting used to being on your feet for a little bit longer. And um, that was pretty much it. Pretty normal.
Yeah, and you did mention that it was kind of hard coming from 10K half marathon in terms of the like pacing and being kind of holding back almost. How was that for your easy runs? Are you the kind of runner who goes like hard on the easy runs, or are you very easy on your easy runs?
No, I mean, so on, I think I think easy running is subjective because obviously I think a lot of it depends on like your heart rate and things like that. For me, I've always felt more comfortable in like a flow state on training runs. And for me, for my physiology, for how I've trained since I was a little girl, I trained with the boys all throughout middle school and high school. Like for me, my easy running pace is possibly a little bit faster than some other people, but I'll never force a run because of a pace. Like if I look down at my watch and I see like 7:30 pace or 8-minute pace, I'm not going to like speed up from that. But naturally, if you were to ask me what does a normal easy day look like, it would probably be around like 6:40, 6:50 pace. That's just naturally where I'm comfortable on my training days. The only exceptions to that are I will force myself to slow down the day after like a huge session. Like if I have like that 24-mile double threshold day I was telling you about, the day after that, like you are jogging today. You are not running your easy run at 6:40 pace. You need to recover from this. But other than that, because I was only at like 3,500 feet of elevation, I wasn't at high altitude. I was at very low to moderate altitude. I didn't find that I needed to put a cap on my easy training if it felt comfortable for me. Now that being said, if I go to Flagstaff at 7,000 feet, I'll be way more conscious of maybe intentionally slowing down those easy runs so that I can absorb the training better. But being that I was not at super high altitude, I didn't think that that was necessary, and I felt recovered between each session, and that was a good sign. I was sleeping good, so yeah, I think like the whole blanket statement of like easy days easy. Yeah, sure, that's true, but everyone's easy is subjective, and it's not a one size fits all. So for some, like for my friend Tristan, who's a 225 marathoner, her easy days are much slower than mine, and that works for her. And my easy days are faster, and that works for me. So again, human physiology, everyone's different. And yeah, I think like that's the beautiful thing about the sport is like you can have similar PRs but train totally different. So yeah, that was one thing in the marathon training. And then with your first question about like how did it feel to like change from like 10K pace to marathon pace and workouts, I there were workouts where I finished those workouts and I was like, "Pete, like I feel like I suck." Like you know, I'm running like a 525 mile and that feels hard right now. Why does that feel hard? And he's like, "Well, because you're running 100 miles a week right now. Like that's why it feels hard." Um and, whereas when I was 10K half marathon training, it was like, oh, that's like that's my easy workout pace or whatever. So it's an ego check. It's like, hey, if you're going to do this marathon training, right, like you better throw your ego out the door because you will be running slower than you used to. And that's okay. That's what the marathon's about.
Yeah. How did you get so smart about this? Because it seems like you're very reflected when it comes to your training.
I I think it stems from the fact that I have been such a student of the sport for so many years. I like since I was 11 years old, right? So like 15 years now. I am such like a fan of the science behind the training, and like you can ask any number of my college coaches to Pete to high school coaches. I've always been the athlete that's like, "Hey, why are we doing this?" Not to question the coach, but like I want to know what benefit it has. Like I want to know, what does running 400 rhythmic 400s in the afternoon after a 1K session in the morning, what is that going to do for my physiology? And so I think when you look at running from more a like scientific approach and one that's born out of like more of like an equation, like if I do this, this might happen. For me, I'm able to take the emotion out of it a little bit and recognize that, yeah, you know what? I'm a little bit hurt that, I'm running slower right now, but I know why that's happening. So it's okay. And I think as long as you can acknowledge um, why those differences in training are happening, you can accept it a little bit easier. And of course, not everything is a science. A lot of my Coach Pete used to always say, it's an art, not a science. So a lot of the marathon and a lot of the training is artsy in that way. Um, but I think looking at it from a more like zooming out perspective, I can be less emotional about things and able to reflect on them more constructively. Like in this marathon, I like when I zoom out and I take the emotion out of it, I say, okay, you did go out too fast. Your first half was too fast, and that cost you the last 6 to 8 miles. But yeah, I think like the best athletes, like they give themselves 24 hours to cry about it, right? Or to be happy about it, whatever it is, be happy or cry, and then you find out what you can do better. And I've always been that type of athlete. I'll like, even though I'm on my, break right now, 6 day break, whatever it is, like I'm already thinking about the next thing and what I can do to get better and how I can use altitude to become a better athlete, how I can use heat training to become a better athlete. So I just love running. So I think if you're passionate about something, you're willing to move on from those things and reflect on them easier. So
I love that, and I love to hear how reflected you are around this because it's. I think that there are a lot of athletes who are just their coaches are telling them what to do, and then they do it, and the problem they might face is that whenever they lose their coach for whatever reason, then they're kind of just like, okay, what do I do now? And they have never had a relationship to or any thoughts around why they did what they did. And
yeah, and
yeah,
what I'll say about that is what we touched on earlier, like the I forget who said it, but someone in the running community had said it before, so I'm definitely not the first one, but um the idea, I think it was Mike Smith out of NAU. He said you should have ownership over your running. You should have ownership over your training and your running. And I think all these years I've trained alone, I have accumulated so much ownership over my running and I care about it so much. And that's very powerful. I think being on a team is awesome. Like I think having teammates is awesome. Like I said, my Bricks teammates love them. They're like family to me. But when you take a step back and you realize that on race day it's you yourself out there, you have to have an idea of at some point you have to recognize that your coach is there to help you, but they don't truly know your body as well as you do. And like for me, these past 15 years or so, like I've identified such a like strong relationship with myself and with my running, and I think that's why I'm able to be reflective about it and look at it from that kind of standpoint, and that I don't need necessarily a coach to validate that for me because I'm so strong in that myself. And I think that's powerful. I think having ownership over your running, having that responsibility over your running is the number one thing you can do like as an athlete. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
And when you talk about the science, just very quickly before we move on, do you use heart rate a lot? Is that what you're basing it on, or is it more feel?
So I actually don't use heart rate that much just because like I'll use resting heart rate as an indicator of where my energy levels might be, or like for example that maybe the time in the month that I'm at where like hey you might be feeling a little bit crappy for this week or whatever, like I use heart rate to kind of feel that out. But in terms of heart rate for every single run I don't, because I know that there's certain factors that will increase heart rate or lower heart rate. Like for example, before the race, my that whole week, like my heart rate, resting heart rate was way up, and I was like, oh, no, like here goes my race. But knowing logically that heart rate plays a very small role in how you're actually going to perform, because it could mean that you're just really well rested, or it could like if your heart rate decreases, that could be a bad thing. It's not always a good thing, right? So I think you have to take the science and know that you can extrapolate data from it, but not let it overrun feel. Because for me as an athlete, feel and gut instinct is the most important thing to me. Um, and for me, things like in the science realm that are the most exciting are like my coach, like David, talks a lot about like gaining hemoglobin mass from heat training or going up to altitude, and how can you go to altitude, gain that hemoglobin mass, and then come back down to a place like Florida and prolong those hemoglobin benefits with heat training. It's really fascinating, like that aspect of science to me, more so than like, the heart rate or the HRV or anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think my recommendation to everyone, wearing Aura rings or whatever, is to put that away. Yeah, me too. Put it away the last few days before the
Yeah.
marathon, because that's not gonna help you. I
It's
mean,
not. You're like the fifth person to tell me that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, the at least for me, the last week I don't feel good anyways, because then my head is just messing with me. So I do not want that data. And like the last threshold workout that I have before the race, then I'm like, how am I gonna do this pace for a full marathon? And I'm only doing it for like 5 minutes, and yeah.
You'll laugh. I was on Friday before the race, I was doing like 3 by 90-second pickups over the last 20 minutes of my run,
Hmm.
like a 40-minute run, 50-minute run. And I remember doing a pickup at like 5:30 pace. And I was like, how am I supposed to do this for 26 miles? And because, I was running and I was like, I'm not running slow right now. And but like you said, it's your body is capable of it. You just can't, like, your mind is going to make you think it's not, but it actually is if you've put in the training.
Oh
Throw.
yeah, and then you get the adrenaline on race day, and everything just aligns. It's good, and yeah. But for you, I guess like the adrenaline was there when you were on the start with some of the best marathon runners, or the best marathon runners in the world.
Yeah.
Can you say something about how that was after what sounds like a pretty good marathon build or block,
Mm.
but it's still your first one, right?
Yeah.
And so
Nice.
on that start line, how was that?
I mean, it was unreal. I think it was made even more unreal by just like knowing how historic the New York City Marathon is in particular. Um, I didn't get that feeling at my half marathon debut or at my, you know, when I a long, long time ago represented the US in the U20 World Champs. I've never experienced a feeling before of like, oh my God, you are on the absolute biggest stage in the world right now with the best runners in the world right now. Um, so the adrenaline was pumping for sure. And I definitely used that to my advantage in the first half. And I mean, yeah, hearing the New York Frank Sinatra music playing, that was when I was like, wow, we're in it right now. And I've watched in preparation for this race, I watched a lot of the New York City Marathon races back. And by no means did I think it would go out as fast as it did. But I think if you looked at the women on the start line, you could kind of expect like it was going to be a pretty fast day just with the ladies we had lining up. Because a lot of people were just playing to their strengths um and I think that was what made this New York City Marathon in particular pretty special. Because you had 5K specialists who had jumped up to the marathon, and someone like Sifan Hassan, who is world renowned, one of the best runners ever, someone who can medal in the Olympics at different events. Like it's beyond me how she can do that. And so I think throwing her into the mix really, really mixed things up, at least for the first part of the race, and probably impacted the race plans of some of those top podium finishers. So yeah.
But when you say that, like we talked about it earlier about, representing the USA and that kid, like to me, the difference between world championships or like bigger marathons or when representing is that you will have the American flag and all of that. But watching it, I'm thinking of you guys as representing your countries anyways. Do you still get a bit of that feeling yourself?
Yeah, I
That you're
do.
like, yeah,
Yeah, I do. I do feel like immense like pride when you're out there, and like when I saw the three Americans in front of me, I was like, wow, the Americans are having a day today. Like four women in the
yeah.
top nine, right? Like I rounded us out in ninth place. To have that type of day out there in my debut and seeing the American women so strong up front was incredible. I mean, fourth and fifth, right off the podium. And then you've got the American record holder coming back. It was an immense amount of pride in being just a small part of that contingency up front, because the Sharon Lokettis, the Helen Obiris, the Sheila Chepkuris, they're so dominant, right? But to be able to see like someone like Fiona mixing it up with them was very, very cool. And yeah, definitely a lot of pride in that for sure.
Yeah, I can only imagine, and I would say that you've played a big part in that, not a small
Thank you.
role in that.
Thank you.
But you did say that you opened a bit your heart. You don't have to talk that much about it. We're getting closer to the end of our conversation, but you were saying that you opened a bit too hard. But how would you say that the race and your first marathon overall felt like?
It was, I mean, incredible. Like I only think really positively when I look back on it. Um, and that's from the emotional side. And when I kind of take the emotion out of it, and I look at the times and I look at the splits, I realize, yeah, that first half is too fast. Like, um, and that won't happen again. But I think I kind of went in with like, hey, you have nothing to lose. Like you can send it. Like you've never run a marathon. And so in terms of like physiologically, I did pay for that half like towards the end of the race, those last 6 miles. But I held it together. I held my own, and I finished out still very strong, I think. And And I think the exciting thing is like knowing that on that day I didn't run the smartest and I didn't run the most perfectly executed race. Knowing that there's still more, even after running 2:25:40 is what is, I guess, like the most exciting part after, about looking at this marathon in a rear view. So but overall out of 10, like 10 out of 10 experience, learned so much about myself, learned so much about my body and what I can improve upon. And it was just a really great experience. And it left me wanting for sure another marathon. So I think that was the end goal, right? Wanting more at the end. So
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to be able to do that first marathon in 225 and ninth place in the New York City Marathon. It's amazing. How was it with fueling for you? Because that I guess, like we talked about before, that is also a huge difference between the half marathon and the marathon. Like the half marathon, you could potentially do it without fueling,
yes,
but the marathon you cannot.
I think for many of my half marathons, like I want to say I maybe took one, max two gels in half marathon races. For this race in particular, I had been practicing all build with Morton 320 drink mix, and I found that it sat really nicely in my stomach. And um, so I used the 320 mix in my, I think we had 7 bottles out in course. Fueling went amazing. I didn't miss a bottle. I found it quite easy to get it down. I took every last drop. My stomach is pretty, like, I have a pretty iron stomach. I've always been a runner that can, like, yeah, like I could eat a lot and then I could go out and run and it won't bother me, which is a superpower for, like, thank God my gut can handle that
Yeah, that is
because
a superpower.
no. I think it's because I've never been a runner that, like, just wakes up. I don't just, like, wake up and run without eating, and I think that is a super beneficial, thing to have as a runner, that you can, like, take in food and then run off of that because it helps train your gut. And in a race like the marathon, when you need to be consuming fuel, like, you have to have a pretty strong gut or else you might throw up, but, so yeah, fueling was awesome. I was really happy about that.
Did you practice that a lot beforehand?
I did. Yep. I practiced bottles, whether it was like one workout in particular. I remember I practiced grabbing bottles off a table just to see what it felt like. And it was pretty easy for me. Nothing crazy there. And then every long run I did, I was either being handed bottles or, um, yeah, things like that. And I would practice with the same amount of carbs I was going to take in for the race, and I would fuel every like 18 to 20 minutes, or every 5K, or if the 5K was, um, or if it was like a certain specific workout, I would do like 18 minutes or 20. But it all kind of varied, but I knew exactly my fueling plan going into the race. And thankfully with Morton, they have like electrolytes, like they have like the sodium in the 320 mix, so I didn't have to add anything else to my bottles. So it was pretty seamless. And um to be honest, I drew the inspiration from like looking at how other people use fueling, and like in particular, sorry about that. Um sorry, my
You're
dogs are
good.
bolting. In particular,
Dogs are always welcome on the podcast.
yes, please be quiet, girls. But yeah, like I know Connor Mance had used Morton, and my friend Ryan Ford, who runs for On now, he used Morton, and so I was asking Ryan a lot about it too because I know fueling had gone pretty well for him. So yeah,
Yeah, it's cool to hear that you were able to do that,
yeah,
first marathon. And like you said, it's a superpower to be able to stomach that, because that is definitely not a given.
yeah.
I'm very excited to see you, like, where you will end up with this marathon running, because it seems like you have a bright future. What is your next goal now?
I think for like the immediate future, probably get another half marathon on the board. And yeah, run a couple of those, and then yeah, definitely getting another marathon on the board, maybe in the spring. So yeah, I'm kind of hooked at this point, and yeah, I think it's in my DNA and my physiology. So I want to stick with what I know now.
Yeah. And what what are your like long-term goals if you are to dream big?
Yeah, I mean, I think of course it's going to be like the same, like similar answer across the board. But I think looking at 2028 and knowing that the Olympics are being held in LA too, yeah, I would. It's always been a dream of mine to be an Olympian, right? So like that would be the biggest goal that I have, which is super far away. But I think I can start dreaming toward that now that I've actually done a marathon. I can call myself a marathoner, whereas before I couldn't because I was like, well, I haven't even run one yet, so how can I be dreaming for the Olympics and the marathon? But yeah, that would be my long term goal. But I'm a type of athlete, I just get excited about every single race that I'm doing. So any race that I'm doing, I'm going to get up for it and be excited about it. So yeah,
I love that. I want to thank you, Amanda, for coming on and for talking about all of this and being so open. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate that. So,
of
yeah,
course.
good luck with everything that's coming up, and with the working with David and
Yeah.
traveling around running. That sounds like a fun life.
Yeah, I was super looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
So that was the last marathon runner from the New York City this year, at least for now. And just really grateful to all of these amazing runners for coming on, and just hoping that you found these episodes useful. And there were a lot of back to back. I'm not sure if this was too much in one weekend, but I think that it's important to get the episodes out there. There are a lot of cool names lined up for the podcast going forward. I have a lot of them recorded already, and I can't wait to share them with you. Next one out is Callie. You'll get to know her better in the next episode. She is also a great marathoner from the UK, and I can assure you that you will listen to that conversation and be left with a lot of energy. Thank you again for listening to the Marathon Podcast. Thanks to Amanda for guesting the pod. And if you haven't already, please follow the podcast, share it with a friend, tag the Marathon Podcast on Instagram. And thanks again. I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wallace Studio.